Waking up this morning, I smile. I have 24 new hours to live. I vow to live them deeply, looking at self and others with eyes of compassion. Hey everyone, welcome to the Managing with Mind and Heart podcast. This is Michael Nash, and I'm going it solo today, doing something a little different. Ethan is home in the heart of Seattle, hanging out and self-isolating and working from home. And I am about 2.5 hours east in the state of Washington, self-isolating at home, working. I'm sitting here in my favorite chair with a blanket on my lap. It's Wednesday morning, March 18th, and we are in the first few days of our nation seriously taking this COVID-19 virus to heart and recognizing that we really are in an emergency situation. Life has changed really suddenly, and I know that you, our listeners, are plugged in and can't even turn on the news or read social media or open a newspaper at this point without being confronted with the national crisis, the worldwide crisis that we're facing. We're going to be one more voice today. I want to offer some thoughts. We've been thinking a lot about this. We've been grappling as a business, trying to figure out what to do as the 10 of us get our heads around the changing landscape in terms of organizations not wanting to do trainings and canceling events. We're trying to get this figured out, and we're trying to get creative and take care of each other. I know personally everyone's dealing with the stress of trying to stay healthy and the social isolation and the inconveniences. It's a really big deal, and I know it's on everyone's mind. But what I'm hoping to do today in this podcast is I want to talk with you, our listeners, about some ideas that I have, some commitments I've made to myself. This is normally, Managing with Mind and Heart. This is normally a podcast about managing others, about managing organizations, about managing work groups. Today, we're going to be focusing much more, actually exclusively, on managing ourselves. So I'm going to be offering 10 ideas, 10, I'm going to call them commitments that I've made. Certainly, they don't need to be commitments on your part, but maybe just 10 ways to think about this virus and the social isolation, and basically 10 things that I think we could do as individuals to help keep ourselves healthy and sane and, dare I say, even happy during this time. I saw a meme the other day on social media, and it said, "Our grandparents were called to war. We're being called to sit on the couch. We can do this." That meme on one level made me laugh a little bit and relax and put some things in perspective. I was able to step back and realize that, I am being massively, massively inconvenienced right now. I'm not being called to put my life on the line and fight for my country or, face a firing squad or, I'm not being tortured. It really was a good way for me to get some perspective. But at the same time, I realized that kind of meme and that kind of thinking can cause us to forget. Maybe a lot of us are dealing with some privilege right now. For me to be concerned with, what am I going to binge watch on Netflix, while there's people out there, and I just want to point this out before we dive into the 10 ideas that I have. I know there are people out there, and this is most likely someone that and it's likely even you, that number one, maybe are grappling with a real financial concern and anxiety right now. That actually is true for me and my company, but not anything like a person who is an hourly worker. I know a lot of people right now who are literally sitting home and not getting paid, and they don't have a cushion. So, I don't want to make light of this. I don't want to talk about these 10 ideas as if everyone is sitting around just trying to worry about how not to get bored. This really is a crisis financially. There's people listening right now who might be sick. Actually, one of our consultants, his parents were just exposed to the virus through some contact they had with a relative just a couple days ago, and he's real concerned about them. So again, yeah, we're not being called to war; we're being called to sit on our couch. But at the same time, there's people that are truly facing some hardship right now and some very real fears and anxieties. And I in no way want to minimize any of that through this conversation. So I just want to put that out there. I feel for you. I feel for the pain. I feel for my own pain, of course, and the pain of my consultants and my family members and my kids. But I feel especially for those people right now that are truly wondering what they're going to do next and how they're going to make it. So in any event, my heart and my thoughts go out to you. And I do want to spend some time right now just going through 10 ideas, 10 ways to keep ourselves healthy and sane. And I'm hoping, dear listener, I'm hoping that some of these will resonate with you, that maybe these 10 strategies could be encouraging for you and maybe help you to step back and get a little bit of a fresh perspective on the days and the weeks and the months that we have ahead of us as we grapple with this crisis. So let's get started. I'm going to encourage you to track these 10 things, maybe even write them down. I'll repeat them a couple times and summarize at the end to make that easier for you. But I invite you to take these 10 things and maybe spend some time processing and thinking about them and asking yourselves if and how they could apply to you. I want us all to be healthy and whole as we go through this really crazy, sudden, dramatic change in our lives. So let's get going. The first three are pretty physical, actually. So we're going to start with the three physical ideas that I have for you. The first one is just so obvious, I'm almost embarrassed to say it, and it's the most in-your-face, practical one, which is basically stay safe. Number one is stay safe, and I don't really want to belabor this, but there's a lot of great information out there right now. I do need to say that I am frustrated that it took our federal government so long to take this thing seriously. I don't want to get political here on this podcast, but I believe that the rhetoric coming out of the federal government has been irresponsible at best. I think that it has endangered lives. I have a lot more I could say about this, and if you wanted to talk to me privately, I'll go off on it. But I'm pleased to hear that our government is actually taking this seriously and facing this as the true crisis that it is. So I know there are people out there still. I have a person I know who is still, as of yesterday, laughing about this, thinking it's some kind of overreaction and some kind of a hoax. And he's shaking hands and he's kind of being defiant to this whole thing. And, the sad news is he's endangering people's lives by behaving that way. I know that's not you. I trust that that's not you. I hope that you're social isolating. I hope that you're washing your hands like a demon. I hope that you are staying safe in all those ways. So again, I'm not going to spend any more time on that. I just want to make that the first of my 10 commitments, of course, is to keep myself and my loved ones safe by basically following the CDC guidelines religiously. So that's it. That's number one. I'm going to do my best to stay safe. I hope you will do your best to stay safe. Number two, and again, these first three are very physical. Number two is beyond being safe. It's now about getting healthy. And I'm calling it, for me, getting healthy. I could call it staying healthy. I could call it being healthy. I need to up my game. I've been spending all of my career traveling, staying in hotels, flying on airplanes. And for me, it's been really difficult to get consistent in any kind of exercise program. It's been hard for me to eat well. I'm not an unhealthy person. I'm pretty close to my ideal weight, even as an old guy. I eat pretty well. I don't eat a lot of sugar at all, but I am up in my game. I'll tell you what, this last 6 days now, I have run every day. I have not run 6 days in a row for probably 10 years. So I'm getting consistent now with my exercise. I've actually started a yoga practice, and it is a really gentle, super easy morning yoga program. I bought an online program, and I'm going to continue to advance in that. And I'm really enjoying it. I'm surprised. I've always sort of poo-pooed the idea of yoga, and I am loving it. I'm loving the feeling of stretching every morning and the quiet that comes with that. Christy and I have decided to do a modified version of the Whole30. And you'll hear later on in this podcast how I'm modifying it. But it's just super healthy eating, and we are really committed right now, partly for to keep our immune system strong, but also just because this is such a good time because we have some time on our hands to get consistent and to get healthy and to stay healthy. So number 2 for me is I'm going to be healthy. I'm going to get healthier. I should say I'm going to be drinking a lot more water. I tend to alternate between coffee in the mid-morning through the mid-afternoon, and a little bit of water here and there. In the evenings, I might have a gin and tonic and maybe a glass of water at dinner. It's not enough. So I'm going to be upping my water intake significantly. Yeah, so that's it. Be healthy. Do it, and for you, and what does that mean for you, right? Think through that. Maybe make some commitments to getting really consistent right now. I've actually talked to a couple friends who said already in the last week or so they've actually gained some weight, and some of that's because of anxiety and maybe not eating so well. And I know that some people eat to cope, and I do struggle with that sometimes. So, hey guys, folks. Get healthy, be healthy, stay healthy. All right, number 3, one last thing that's about sort of the physical, and this one is go outside. And maybe, not only are some of these things pretty obvious, I know some of them kind of leak into each other, they kind of relate to each other because getting healthy might involve being outside, but I tell you what, get outside. Even if that's get outside and sit in a lawn chair. Social isolation, if we're not careful, can keep us indoors more than what's healthy. We need the vitamin D from the sun. We need the fresh air. We need the perspective that getting outside creates. I went outside last night, and it was freaking cold. I live up in the mountains, by the way. It was like 28 degrees last night, but I bundled up and went outside and sat in a lawn chair underneath the stars, and it was just really good for my soul to just be out there, and I could actually see traces of the Milky Way. I went for a walk this morning. As I mentioned earlier, I'm running each day. This Saturday, I'm going to go for a hike up a nearby peak, or not a peak, but a ridge that's near my house. I just want to encourage our listeners to get outside. Hey, this is going to sound a little weird and touchy-feely, but I started a practice about a year ago where occasionally I go outside and I lay down in the grass, face first, and just let my body connect with the earth. And there's not I don't have a spiritual component to this. I'm not communing with Mother Earth in any kind of personified way. I am just being close to nature and being right there connected with the earth. And I laid there, when I do this, I lay out there for maybe 5 minutes, and it's actually surprisingly relaxing. So I'm a little embarrassed about that last one. So if you're mocking me, rolling your eyes right now, then go for it. Enjoy that. So that was it. Number 3, get outside. Get out and get in the great outdoors. Go for a walk. Breathe. And speaking of breathe, let's do number 4. And this one is... Now we're going to move away from the physical, although there is a physical component to this, and we're going to get into is it emotional, is it spiritual, is it mental? I'm not sure what I want to call it, but this is a big one. This is something that has, I would say, and I know this sounds dramatic, has kind of changed my life, and I've mentioned it a few times here in the podcast, but it's called practice mindfulness. And Ethan and I are going to be spending at least 1 or 2 podcasts on this topic because mindfulness is a thing that has kind of gotten into the organizational world over the last decade or so. Organizations are practicing mindfulness. It has improved individual employee health. It's improved productivity. It helps people deal with anxiety and stress. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on it here, but I want to let you know that the practice of living in the moment has changed my life. And I tell you what, there is no better time. If you have been thinking about mindfulness, if you've been wondering if maybe this is something you want to start exploring, what better time than now, right? Here's a time where many of us have extra time on our hands. We might be dealing with some anxiety and stress. This is a time to maybe decide to get healthy in this particular way. I want to talk a little bit about where this has come from for me. I'll just say that many years ago, I had this experience. I was sitting in a coffee shop in downtown Seattle. It was about 6:30 or 6:45 in the morning. It was pouring down rain outside, and I had to get ready to do a class at about 8:30. And for whatever reason that day, I was not into it. I was not loving my life that morning. I'm not going to say I was depressed, but I certainly wasn't happy. And I decided to practice this sort of this mind experiment with myself. And it goes like this. I want you to pretend for a minute that you just found out that you have exactly 7 days left on this earth. Your life is going to be over in 7 days. And the rules of the game are this. You can't do anything bucket list about it. You can't go out and quit your job and go skydiving and go travel, or you actually can't even go talk about this with anybody. So you can't go do your final goodbyes. It's this fantasy situation where you have 7 days left and you still have to just do your life. And every time I've done this, and this day it was actually pretty stark and pretty dramatic for me. It was really cool because I sat there and everything changed. First of all, I was like, wow, this is most likely the very last time I'm going to be sitting in this coffee shop, and I really like this coffee shop. And oh my gosh, this latte is so good, and I'm not going to have more than another. I have 7 days left. That means I'm going to have maybe 30 more lattes. And I'm just kidding, folks. The rain outside suddenly became lovely. I ended up walking to work in the rain with my umbrella, and I found myself enjoying like almost every step and thinking about how much I love downtown Seattle, and that this was maybe going to be my last time ever to be downtown, and maybe my last time to ever go walking in the rain. And it even extended to my client work that day. I found myself thinking, this is the last time the last chance I'm going to have to impact this particular client group. And I really want to be here and be present for them, because I'm going to be, I'm going to be gone in 7 days, and I'm never going to have this opportunity again. That way of thinking, whenever I try that on, it changes my perspective on almost everything. There's a Buddhist thought process that goes, live your life as if there's a sword hanging over your neck at all times. And it's not a, live in fear, oh no, I'm about to get my head cut off. It's a live as if what is true is actually true, that we don't know when our last moment is going to be. If our life was analogous to a week, you might be at Monday or Tuesday. You might be at the beginning of your week and have a whole week ahead of you, or it might be Friday night. You might just have the weekend left. It might be Sunday morning. We don't know how much time we have left. Now I know based on my age and the statistics out there, I'm not on Monday. I know that. I'm probably closer to Friday, but I don't know. It could be actually Sunday evening right now. I just don't know. And that perspective that has given me a little bit more of that ability to live in the moment. And what I've added to that is the actual practice of mindfulness. And meditation, mindfulness is a practice. It is something that I'll tell you has changed my life. It's allowed me to, I'm going to give you another analogy, listeners. The Matrix, most of you have watched The Matrix. Do y'all remember that scene where Neo is being shot at? And the bullets are coming at him in slow motion, and he is twisting and turning and avoiding the bullets as they're slowly passing him. And, in real life, of course, in the movie real life, nothing's in slow motion. He's just seeing it that way. And seeing the bullets coming to him slowly, it allows him the time to get out of the way. And mindfulness has done that for me in some ways. What it's allowed me to do is be very aware of what's happening inside of me. And it's given me time in the moment, in a particular conversation, for example, to be more measured, to be more thoughtful. For example, I can hear a comment, and because I've been practicing mindfulness, I can notice immediately that it's triggered a feeling in my stomach or my chest. And that feeling is connected to defensiveness. And I start to notice the defensive feelings in my body. And I have time, because I'm aware of what's happening, I have time to do something that I wouldn't have done in the past. Whereas in the past, I might have reacted with a snippy comment or a defensive statement or a passive aggressive comment. It's allowed me to stop and think, what's the best thing to do right here in the moment? What's the best thing to do for me? What's the best thing to do or to say right now for this other person? What's going to be the thing that I could say here that's going to bring something positive to the relationship as opposed to something negative? So the practice of mindfulness, right? It's for me, it's a 20-minute time each morning where I'm focusing on my breath, or I'm focusing on some emotion and really examining it, or I'm listening to the sounds around me and focusing and being very still and quiet. There are so many benefits to this, and there's so many ways to go about it. This isn't going to be a podcast of instruction. I just want to tell you that this mindfulness practice has changed my life, and this is a really good time to practice and to start practicing if you haven't. Just some resources if you're interested, and there's so much out there, but a couple of my favorites. If you are really, really new to this and in fact don't even know it's something you actually want to get into, but you're curious, I tell you what, Dan Harris is the place to start. Dan Harris is a reporter, and he is, I think he's still on Channel 4, but probably a decade ago, he had a slight, I don't know if there's such a thing as a slight nervous breakdown, but he had a bit of a nervous breakdown on air, which led him to some soul searching and led him into the practice of mindfulness. He wrote 10% Happier, which is a delightful book. It's actually pretty funny and easy to read and really fun to read. And it's not an instructional book. It's a book that will really help you get your head around how and why, or not the how, but the why of meditation. And it's just a great, almost a memoir that will literally make you laugh at least 3 or 4 times each chapter. But then he wrote a follow-up book, which I love the title. It's called Meditation for Fidgety Skeptics. And that one is a bit more of a how-to, but it's also really fun. Susan Salzberg, True Happiness is another great place to start. Then there's Thich Nhat Hanh, and he is a Buddhist monk. And don't let that frighten you in any way. Most of his writings are really, really accessible, and they're not laden with spiritual language. But he wrote No Mud, No Lotus. And I have found it to be a really beautiful, gentle introduction to the practice of mindfulness, almost in a poetic way. I really like it. And in fact, there's a morning meditation that I'm going to share with you again. You heard it at the very beginning of the episode. I do this in the mornings. I've just started doing this. It's really quick. It's 4 lines. And what you do is you inhale with the first line. You exhale with the second line. You inhale with the third line. Then you exhale again on the 4th line. And again, it goes like this. Waking up this morning, I smile. I have 24 new hours to live. I vow to live them deeply, looking at self and others with eyes of compassion. I find that beautiful and a really good kind of a combination of the thought process of living in the moment, coupled with the breathing in and out of mindfulness meditation practice. And then lastly, there are some great apps. I'm not going to mention all of them, but some of my favorites, Sam Harris's Waking Up with Sam Harris. It's a meditation app that instructs you on the very basics of meditation. He has a very scientific approach to it. There's no spirituality thrown in at all. There's the 10% Happier app, Dan Harris's app, that has hundreds of different kinds of meditation, guided meditations in there, and a lot of great instruction. There's many others, and again, we'll circle back to this another day. Ethan and I are both we both love this topic, and we will certainly be coming back to it. I do want to one more thing I'll say about this, and you probably can tell by some of my comments. I'm not a big higher power person. I actually came from the Christian world. I was actually a leader in the Christian church for many, many years until about a decade ago. A lot changed for me. A lot of my belief system changed. I don't have any judgment toward a spiritual approach to meditation. I just don't tend to take a spiritual approach to it, and yet it works anyways. And so I'm saying that just in case there's anyone out there who has always associated meditation with religion or meditation with spirituality. It can be a really good combination for sure, but it doesn't have to be. So there you go. We've covered 4 of my tips or my commitments. The first 3 were very physical. Stay safe, number 1. Get healthy, number 2. Go outside, number 3. And then number 4 was practice mindfulness or practice meditation, or however you want to put that. All right, numbers 5, 6, and 7. These 3 all have to do with other people. So now we're focusing outward. We're focusing on others. This next one is be a helper. Be the helper. Be the one that reaches out and meets the needs of those around you. I know this goes without saying. I know you all know this, but man, it just feels so good, right? I mean, if you want to take this even sort of in a self-focused kind of way, it really does feel good to help other people. I mean, the scientists even tell us that when you act with compassion, it actually helps you with your own immune system. It helps you to be healthier, even physically. I just love this piece. Reach out and help people. I want to give you a couple anecdotes. Just some things I've done in this last week. This was a real simple one. I was on social media. And as a side note here, I'm mentioning social media quite often during this podcast. And I know that everyone has their own sort of relationship with social media. Some people are really into it. Some people hate it. I think social media comes with its blessings and its curses. This might be the time, because of all the changes in our society and the social isolation, this might be the time to learn to really use it for good and to develop a really healthy relationship with social media, because there really is some good that can come from it. So back to my little anecdote, I was on social media and there was a friend of a friend who posted that his dog was sick with cancer and he had just been laid off. Well, he himself had been laid off, not the dog. He had been laid off and he didn't have money, and I think it was $170 he needed for this vet visit, this treatment, whatever it was. Maybe it was an operation, I can't remember. But in any event, he was really distraught and his poor doggy was sick. And I chipped in and said, look, I'll give you $20 for your dog. And I came back to that post about 3 or 4 days later, and 5 or 6 other people had done the same thing. It was really heartening. Another thing I've done lately, in our own community, we have a social media page on Facebook, and there's actually several hundred people on this page. And I put a note out and just said, hey, I'm available. I'm willing to go shopping. Of course, I'll be super careful and safe. But if you're stuck, if you're home and you're sick or you're older and you need someone to do a little bit of shopping and drop some stuff for you on your porch, I'm willing to do that. I'm also willing to be a listening ear. I am a coach. I know a little bit about holding space for others. I'm a pretty good listener. If you need to talk, I'm here, and I have had 3 or 4 hits in the last few days, and it's been really wonderful to be able to be part of being part of a helping community. And I just want to encourage you all to think about the opportunities you have to reach out and to be a helper. We need to be a community at this time. We need to be there for each other. There might be someone in your life or someone you know or someone you don't know yet, but you might find out that needs a little bit of help financially, and you might be one of those people that actually have a little bit of extra right now. You might be still getting a salary, whereas there's people around you that are literally nothing is coming in and they're using up their cushion really quickly, if they even have one. This might be the time to offer some help. I know our local food bank, it's called the Community Cupboard. They are in desperate need right now. So I'm going to be helping them out in a few small ways with some cash gifts. And I might even go in and help them physically. There might be some people out there that just need a listening ear, right? There might be people out there that are scared, that are struggling in with anxiety. They might just, this time of uncertainty is hard for everyone, right? Human beings do not do well with uncertainty. So can you be a stabilizing source for people in your life, even though you yourself might be feeling some of the same things? This might be the time to reach out and offer a chance for someone to just bitch and moan a little bit, or to talk through their anxiety, or just connect person to person, even if it's over Skype or Zoom or over the phone. Just reach out. There's people out there. You might have some folks that just need some good advice, some good binge material on Netflix. I don't mean to trivialize this in any way, but this is the time to be there for other people, right? It's one of the things we can do right now is we can focus outward, and we can discover how we can be the helpers. So yeah, that's number 5. Number 6 is also about other people, but it's the reverse side of the coin. Let's flip the coin over. Now it's about you being willing to ask for help. And I'm not going to spend a bunch of time on this. I just want to say, folks, if you are the one feeling anxiety and need somebody to talk to, you might need a little extra money. You're maybe that hourly employee who doesn't have a buffer and doesn't know how you're going to make ends meet. You might be someone right now who you might be an extrovert and someone who just needs to talk to think. And you might be going a little crazy right now in your home and just need to connect so you don't go all shining on your family. Just reach out. Please swallow your pride. Again, this is the time for us to live and act as members of a community. And that means being both willing to give, but also your willingness to receive. So I'm going to ask our listeners to consider, do you have a need right now? Do you have something that someone else could do for you? And maybe you're too embarrassed, or maybe have a little bit too much pride to actually put that out there. Let's do it. Because here's another cool thing about this. When you ask for help, it actually gives people permission to ask for help. So let's be a community right now. Let's ask for help. Let's offer help. So that's number 5 and number 6, right? Be a helper, ask for help. And then number 7, also about other people. And this is really just about, and it's kind of an obvious one, I guess, but it's about staying connected to your loved ones, staying connected socially. It's not just offering help or asking for help. It's just about human connection. Let me say this again. We are a human species that is not good with uncertainty. We're not good with change. We're also not good with social isolation. Although there's a lot of pretty funny memes out there right now about, basically introverts having been preparing for this moment their entire life. And I get that. But I do want to encourage, I'm talking to myself right now. Even though I am a people person, it's pretty easy for me to stay disconnected. And I don't want to do that. I have decided to be pretty connected. I'm kind of turning it up to 11 a little bit. And that doesn't mean I'm going crazy and, annoying all my friends and family. But I've decided to be more intentional about staying connected. And I'm just going to give you a quick list of the layers of that for me. The most obvious is my partner in life, the wonderful, amazing, beautiful Christy Nash, who is my wife, and we live here together in this home. And we've done a really good job this last week of sort of toggling back and forth between intentional time together. So we've most mornings we have a coffee time together and a chat time. Throughout the day, we might walk the dog together. We might sit and have a meal. Some evenings we are very intentional about being together during that time. And that's toggled with these other times where we're sort of parallel doing our own thing, sometimes in the same room, even at the same time, but often in different parts of the house. But we've discovered a pretty good cadence, or a pretty good pattern of back and forth between alone and together. Next concentric circle out. I've got 4 kids, and they're all adults, and they're out in different parts of the state, and we're just doing our best. We're staying connected. We're texting. We have a text group going, and we're all communicating most days on that. Certainly, Ethan and I spend a lot of time talking because we're also, partners in this business. But I'm staying connected with the other three. We set up a virtual family night for about an hour tomorrow night over Skype. I'm not sure what that'll look like, but we'll all probably have a glass of wine and have some fun together. And so there's that level of connection, that second concentric circle for me. The third concentric circle for me are my friends. And I have a really great circle of people out there that I stay in touch with. And sometimes weeks and months go by. I'm being a little more intentional about that this last week, and I intend to do that for this next many months or however long this lasts. So I'm just doing a little bit more, again, more intentional about staying connected through an email, through a phone call, through a text. And that's been really good. It's been really rich. I've had some really good conversations over the last few days, week or so. And then there's actually one more level out. I've reconnected with some people that are sort of that, we talk maybe every year, maybe every other year. I've connected with a few of those folks, and it's been nice to kind of renew those connections. So, I just want to say that it's real easy for us to get isolated, especially when it's sort of required right now, and stay connected. We need each other. We need our friends. We need those relationships. We need to be reminded that we're loved. We need to remind others that we love them. So stay connected. It's life-giving. It's good for your soul. Okay, so that's 7. I got 3 more to go. And these last 3 are, they are about self-care. They really are about being kind to yourself. If you want to look through kind of an ugly lens, these could maybe feel a little self-indulgent. Please don't go there. It's really important that we stay healthy and balanced, and I think these last 3 things are a good way to take care of ourselves. So number 8 for me is just do nice things for myself. It's just the pleasures in life. I have 3 gins that I have purchased, and I am excited about them. I love gin, and I've got 3 of my favorites right now. I have an Aviation, I have a Big Gin, and I have what's my third gin? Oh, it's just a basic Hendrick's, which is nothing too exotic. But those are 3 of my favorites, and I'm excited to have those gins on hand, and I'm going to be sampling and trying those. And I know this sounds a little contradictory to my Be Healthy, full 30 or whole 30 diet kind of thing, but this is the exception I mentioned earlier in the show. I have a piano, and I'm just taking some time to just play for fun, and that's been really good. I'm giving myself permission to binge watch a little bit. I don't know, binge is probably not the right word. I can't really do that very well. I can't sit and watch hour after hour, but I'm watching a couple series right now, and they're really fun. The Boys, HBO The Boys is just blowing my mind. I'm loving it. I finally am into Narcos, which my daughter has for quite a while recommended that I get into, and I'm loving that. So yeah, watching a series. The idea here for me is giving myself permission, right? Just giving myself permission to take care of myself, and in sort of a relaxing, enjoyable way. I'm sleeping in a little bit more. I've got a couple books right now. I have a Barbara King Solving that I'm just loving. So for me, and I'll just repeat this, no guilt. Give yourself permission. Take a warm bath. Do nice things for yourself. And I'm trying to do that every day. And I'm liking the freedom that comes with, this is not self-indulgent. This is not selfish. This is really good self-care for the long haul. Number 9, it's another sort of self-care piece, but now it's about learning. I've decided that this is a really good time to learn some stuff. And I'm kind of talking on a micro and a macro level. Micro, for example, is there's a series of peaks, mountain peaks that I can see from my home. I've never taken the time to learn the names of all these minor peaks, and I learned the names a couple days ago. I've learned 5 peaks, and I can look out there now, and it's kind of funny. It's sort of changed my view in a sense. I see these peaks now through a little bit of a different lens. One of them is called Warrior Peak, and I just love it. I love the name Warrior Peak, and that mountain has become, I think, my favorite of the 5. Another one is called Mount Jupiter. I love that one. I just love the names of these mountains, and so it's been fun, to learn those and actually have that knowledge of my environment as I'm looking out the window. Oh, I know what those mountains are called, and if I ever have a friend come over again, I'll be able to impress my friends, right? On a more of a macro level, I've decided to kind of focus in on some bigger learning. I am trying to understand the theory of relativity. I've been I've been a really super novice science. I'm not even going to say buff because that sounds like I know something. I'm just super interested. I've always been really, really interested, and it's really fun to dig in and understand things that are hard for our brains to grasp. So I'm into that right now, trying to figure that out. Just a little bit of time on that each. I think I'm doing that mostly in the evenings before I go to bed. There is one more. I mentioned the piano. I actually have a Roland, and it's just a really great electric piano, and I got it several years ago. And it is freaking like you need an MIT degree just to figure it out. There are so many bells and whistles on this thing and so many buttons, and you have to press these buttons in this certain series to make these things happen. And I just don't get it because, my life has been, I've got 20 minutes to spend with my piano, and I'm not going to waste it figuring out buttons. I'm going to play some songs. And so I've decided to get out the manual and get online and get into YouTube and figure out my piano. So yeah, that's number 9 is just maybe choose something to learn. There's some great courses out there. In fact, isn't that the program? I think it's called Great Courses. I could look that up if I had the inkling, but I'm not going to do that. There's programs out there. There's actually colleges that are offering courses, and sometimes they're free. So what a great time, right? To learn some things, to expand your horizons in that way. Number 9, and I know these overlap a little bit. This one is called Get Creative. I just want to encourage our listeners to tap into those creative muscles that you have. Maybe these are muscles that you've been working out a lot in your life, and maybe they're not. Maybe you have some hidden talents, maybe just some hidden interests that you've never really explored along the lines of creativity. You know what? This is a great time to exercise that part of your brain. This is a time to maybe draw, maybe do some writing, maybe do some just journaling, but get creative. Maybe write some poetry. Something that happened to me, and this was, 18 months ago. I, on a whim, bought some pastels, and I am not I don't draw. I've always actually been pretty crappy at drawing, and I've been pretty embarrassed about the stuff I've produced when I've actually given it a shot. And I got these pastels, and something about the texture and the colors and the method, I just got into it, and I was really surprised at what came out. I'm not Rembrandt and I'm not Picasso, but I'll tell you what, I was, if I do say so myself, a little impressed with what was in me and what came out on paper, and it's been really fun. And I've had several framed, and I actually, and this is just a weird kind of a fluke, a friend of a friend saw a couple of them, and they had an opening at a local restaurant, and they said, "Hey, would you put them up for, display these here for the next couple months?" And so I did that last October and November, and it was really fun. It was kind of embarrassing and scary a little bit to have my work up there, but I was courageous enough to do it, and I really enjoyed the experience. Another avenue of creativity right now is actually business related. Frankly, my business is tanking a little bit right now, like many other businesses. And I don't mean to be too dramatic about that. We've got a group of 10, and we're really smart and creative, and we're doing some really cool things. And we've got some really faithful and loyal clients that are going to continue working with us. But I tell you what, this is not the time that a lot of organizations are saying, "Hey, let's get our teams together and do some leadership development work." So we're having to get really creative, and I've actually enjoyed this. I've been working with Ethan and a few others on the team, and it's just been a really good time to tinker and talk through some really creative ideas. And over the last couple of days, in fact, this morning I had a wonderful conversation with Andy Thompson, one of our consultants, and just a bunch of really cool ideas came up. And then we've got, Anna and Tad and some others that are suggesting some cool things. And so, yeah, it's been a time to get creative in a business sense. So that's number 10, get creative. So a couple quick things as I close up here today. First of all, I just want to kind of list those one by one just to make sure that we're all on the same page. So these are my 10 strategies or ideas for staying healthy and happy and sane and whole and alive in a sort of a spiritual sense during this time. So the first 3 are very physical. It's stay safe. Number 2 is get healthy or stay healthy, or however you want to put that. Number 3 is go outside. Number 4 was practice mindfulness or practice living in the here and now or practice meditation, something like that. Numbers 5, 6, and 7 are about other people, right? Number 5 is be a helper, reach out, etc. Number 6 is ask for help. Number 7 was stay connected with loved ones, with your friends, with your family. And then the last 3, 8, 9, and 10, are just about self-care. 8 is just self-care, right? Do fun, relaxing, enjoyable stuff. Don't feel guilty about it. Just do it. Number 9 is Number 9 was learn stuff. Is focus on some new learnings, develop some new areas of information, and broaden your horizons in that way. And number 10 is to get creative, to exercise your creative muscles. So those are the 10 things. And I want to ask you or encourage you listeners to maybe just take a little bit of time sometime later today or sometime soon and just work through that list. Think through those. One exercise that's been kind of a cool thing for me in other contexts is to take about 10 minutes and give yourself 1 minute to just think about each of those. And process and just let those sort of sit. Maybe have a journal ready and jot a few notes down. You might want to do that exercise a little bit expanded where you spend 2 minutes or even 5 minutes on each item and give yourself time to process and just write whatever comes up and then come back later and maybe do some choosing and some selecting. And again, be intentional about how you're going to live in this really rapidly, dramatically changing time that we're in right now. And then, very last thing, I'm going to end this podcast with a poem. And if you are not into poetry, this would be a good time to say so long and sign off. And otherwise, if you can hang out for just a couple more minutes, I want to end with a poem that I found online. It has kind of a funny name. It's called Wash Your Hands. And it's actually not attributed. I don't know who wrote this. I'm just going to say I did. So if you don't mind, I'm just going to claim this. I wrote this poem, actually. Not really, but I do want to read this to you because I think it captures some of what we've just been talking about. So sit back and enjoy. Wash your hands. We are humans relearning to wash our hands. Washing our hands is an act of love. Washing our hands is an act of care. Washing our hands is an act that puts the hypervigilant body at ease. Washing our hands helps us return to ourselves by washing away what does not serve. Wash your hands like you are washing the only teacup left that your great-grandmother carried across the ocean. Like you are washing the hair of a beloved who is dying. Like you are washing the feet of Grace Lee Boggs, Beyonce, Jesus, your auntie, Audre Lorde, Mary Oliver. You get the picture. Like this water is poured from a jug your best friend just carried for 3 miles from the spring they had to climb a mountain to reach. Like water is a precious resource made from time and miracle. Wash your hands and cough into your elbow, they say. Rest more. Stay home. Drink water. Have some soup, they say. To which I would add, burn some plants your ancestors burned when there was fear in the air. Boil some aromatic leaves in a pot on your stove until the windows steam up. Open your windows. Eat a piece of garlic every day. Breathe. My friends, it is always true, these things. It has already been true. It is already time that we should move with care and intention, asking, do you want to bump elbows instead, with everyone we meet? It is always true that people are living with one lung, with immune systems that don't work so well, or perhaps work too hard, fighting against themselves. It is already true that people are hoarding the things that the most vulnerable need. It is already time that we might want to fly on airplanes less and not go to work when we are sick. It is already time that we might want to know who in our neighborhood has cancer, who has a new baby, who is old with children in another state, who has extra water, who has a root cellar, who is a nurse, who has a garden full of eucalyptus and nettles. It is already time that temporarily non-disabled folks think about the people living with chronic illness and disabled people, that young people think about old people. It is already time to not take it personally when someone doesn't want to hug you. It is already time to slow down and feel how scared we are. We are already afraid. We are already living in a time of fires. When fear arises, and it will, let it wash over your whole body instead of staying curled up tight in your shoulders. If your heart tightens, contract and expand. Science says compassion strengthens the immune system. We already know that, but our things, our possessions, they give us amnesia. They trick us into thinking that they're the things that protect us. But it's the way we hold the things. It's the way we do the things. Those of us who have forgotten, we turn to hoarding hand sanitizer and masks. We find someone to blame. We think that will help. It is already time to remember to hang garlic on our doors, to dip our handkerchiefs in thyme tea, to rub salt on our feet, to pray the rosary, kiss the mezuzah, cleanse with an egg. In the middle of the night, when you wake up with terror in your belly, it is time to think about stardust and geological time, redwoods and dance parties, and mushrooms remediating toxic soil. It is time to care for one another, to pray over water, to wash away fear every time we wash our hands. It is time to care for one another, to pray over water, to wash away fear every time we wash our hands.